Good evening from the News Radio, 1120 a.m. and 93.7 FM KPNW studios. I'm Gunter Lundun, a.k.a. Jorge, and I host the Wake Up Call, 6 a.m. to 9, Monday through Fridays on this fine radio station, which streams at kpnw.com. And the news tonight is brought to you by Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental. I actually had my teeth cleaned at Chris Dental yesterday, and it was great. Dr. Bratland comes in, my hygienist is doing her thing in my mouth, and he says, oh, by the way, Bill says that if it doesn't hurt, he doesn't think you're doing your job. Thanks, Dr. Bratland. Appreciate the solid. Okay, our first story tonight, I don't think I've ever heard of this happening anywhere. The city council and the mayor of Cresswell are receiving some public blowback. Now, when a city councilor, for whatever reason, vacates their seats, it is up to the city council to vote to find somebody to fill that seat on an interim basis, usually until the next election. And then they vote and they replace the outgoing councilor with that interim councilor. So in a 3-3 tied vote, with the mayor breaking the tie, the city council in Cresswell, Oregon, installed Christina Allen to fill the council seat. She was nominated by Councilor Nick Smith, who voted for her along with Councilors Stacy Holt and Alonzo Castillo and Mayor Dave Stram, who was the tiebreaker. When the announcement was made on social media with a photograph of a smiling Allen wearing a Santa hat, the city council was lit up by Cresswell residents. Now, you may be asking, okay, why? Well, let me read from the announcement that was made on their Facebook page. Quote, "This is a historic election for the city of Cresswell, as Christina will be the first of Cresswell's unhoused population to serve in a public office." They went on to say that she would be sworn in on January 8th. Well, that received quite a bit of blowback, and most people, not all, a few were in favor of it, but most very critical of the decision and were more than happy to post a lot of negative emotions about it. Some made claims about alleged, and we don't know if this really happened or not, but alleged disruptive activities that Allen supposedly caused in the downtown area over the course of the years. Well, after the blowback, then, the city council decided to have a public meeting this coming Monday at 6 p.m. at Cresswell City Hall to, in the words of the city, quote, discuss whether we should reconsider the appointment of Christina Allen to the city council. Oh. Then today, they posted something else, saying that they had learned that Christina Allen was actually related in one form or another to somebody who worked for the city. And they alluded this could be a conflict of interest when it comes budget time. Okay, let's just be straight. That is so much cover your ass. Right now, we have on the Lane County Board of Commissioners, Heather Buck. She was elected to that position. Her father, he just stepped down, but her father used to run the local St. Vincent de Paul, a nonprofit organization that actually receives millions of dollars a year in taxpayer funds to provide a number of different services to not only the homeless, but people in need and so on. And how does Heather Buck, a county commissioner who has a heck of a lot more power than a city councilor, how does she get around that? She simply recuses herself from the voting. It would be very easy for Christina Allen to do that. In other words, they're trying to set the table so that they can do this and make it look like, oh, well, we don't want a conflict of interest, when in reality, they just know that they probably screwed up on this one. Well, Oregon's favorite couple is back in the news, and that's Aaron Mitchell and Rosa Cesaris. They're the embattled co-founders of Lamada Dispensaries, the pot chain. And according to a new article in Willamette Week, they're saying that at least 2 former associates of Mitchell and Cesaris have been approached by special agents with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Department of Treasury, asking a number of questions about business practices and also personal matters of the duo. Now, these 2 people that are part of the story, as reported by Willamette Week, say they were approached by the special agents and that they were former associates of Mitchell and Cesaris, who, up until recently, operated 30 dispensaries all across Oregon. And that empire has been, shall we say, in flux since it was reported that they owe millions of dollars in federal and state tax liens, unpaid bills, and, of course, they're known for their hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations made in cash, put in brown paper bags to top Oregon Democratic Party officials. Now, their relationship with former Secretary of State Shemia Fagan, who signed, of course, a $10,000 a month secret consulting contract with the couple back in February, also resulted in Fagan resigning in the days after it became public notice after, well, she was outed in the press. It now appears that the feds are asking questions about the couple's business practices and also about their political interests. That, according to the 2 sources. Also about the structure, the business structure of Lamada. Now, it should be noted that the U.S. Department of Justice launched a criminal investigation into Fagan and also her relationship with Mata earlier this year. That was following her resignation. Now, whether there's a connection here between the FBI and the U.S. Department of Treasury and the investigation of Lamada, whether it has anything to do with the investigation into Fagan, who knows, but likely the betting person would say there's some connection there. Also, a third source says that they were approached by special agents about 2 months ago regarding Lamada and the politicians that received large cash donations from the couple. Recipients, by the way, in case you didn't know, of Lamada's cash donations include, among many others, Governor Tina Kotek, former Secretary of State Shemia Fagan, former Bureau of Labor and Industries Commissioner Val Hoyle, who is now a U.S. Congresswoman who wouldn't give up the public information on her phones for some reason, and also Senate President Rob Wagner. To take this a step further, Cesaris and Mitchell not only threw lavish fundraisers for Kotek and Fagan in 2021 and 22, but also they paid for and hosted a black tie gala for Tina Kotek on the night that she won the race for governor. So, Oregon state health officials are overhauling the state's underutilized Measure 110 hotline for connecting people with drug treatment services amid public calls for repealing and or reforming that law, which all but legalized street drugs in the state of Oregon and was supposed to funnel millions of dollars into substance abuse treatment and services. Ballot Measure 110. We've talked a lot about this. Now, the Oregon Health Authority announced Wednesday that it had replaced Lines for Life, the hotline's former operator, with Boston-based nonprofit Health Resource in Action. They're going to receive $3 million a year to operate and promote a new hotline, develop a website, make follow-up calls with people that have called them, and create a method for people to text the hotline. Now, since Ballot Measure 110 went into effect in 2021, a whopping 577 people have called the existing hotline, according to the Oregon Health Authority. Now, there's something to know about this hotline. Yes, it is a hotline you can call if you're looking to get yourself into drug treatment. No doubt about it. But there is another reason for that hotline. Now, when you receive a ticket for having hard street drugs, because, like I said, it's all but legalized, you receive a ticket it is a $100 ticket if you're caught with it and a police officer takes the time to write you one of these tickets. All you have to do is call that hotline and talk to the person on the other end of the line, and that fine is automatically waived. So in 3 years, 577 people have called it. Most of the people calling it just are looking to waive the fine. So this overhaul coincides as well with weakening public support for Measure 110, which voters approved in 2020, just as fentanyl started, raising its ugly head in Oregon, which of course has contributed to skyrocketing drug overdose death rates, which have tripled statewide between 2019 and the first of last year. An August survey by Emerson College showed that 56% of Oregonians supported a total repeal of Measure 110, and a report from Portland State University also found law enforcement officers see 110 as ineffective and harmful to public safety. Now, the people behind ballot Measure 110 want to do anything they can to keep this law, as dumb as it was, in effect in Oregon, and we'll have another example of that coming up here in just a second. Earlier this month, if you recall, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler asked Oregon lawmakers to criminalize public drug use. Well, the governor has said something about that, which switches us to the next story. Governor Tina Kotek has now released a batch of recommendations aimed at bolstering downtown Portland during the first half of the next year as that city wrestles with diminished economic activity, open drug use, and public safety concerns. Now, as we've told you already, Kotek has been meeting in secret. Well, it was an open secret with Portland leaders, legislators, the police, businesses, the Oregon Business Council, and others to try and come up with some firm ways to keep Portland from becoming Detroit 2.0. Among the recommendations that the governor is going to be taking to legislators and others focuses really on three main things, and that would be drugs, crime, and homelessness. So here's some of the things on the governor's checklist. A multi-year moratorium on new taxes, but of course only for Portland. A 90-day state of emergency focused on fentanyl, and a push to remove remaining plywood and fencing around downtown properties that, were boarded up after months of riots in Portland. Now, those are some of the initiatives. Other proposals, the governor said she and fellow leaders will push to enact within the 6 months, include ramped up social services for people that are homeless or drug addicted, enhanced police patrols, and an expansive effort to clean up trash and graffiti that pretty much remains, pervasive throughout all of Portland. And along with that, the governor says she is going to push for a request that the legislature ban the public consumption of controlled substances. In other words, let's sweep this problem under the rug because if you don't see it, it doesn't exist, right? Right. She also wants to couple that with more aggressive prosecutions against suspected drug dealers if lawmakers go along with it. And who knows whether they will or not. Now, of course, on this last point, the public use, there is already pushback on making public use of fentanyl, meth, heroin, whatever illegal. Larry Turner of the Health Justice Recovery Alliance is part of a coalition of mostly out-of-state and national groups that supported and, for all intents and purposes, misled voters about Oregon's controversial Measure 110. He says criminalizing public use and increasing law enforcement interactions with people in crisis fail to address the real issue and will only cause them harm. Yeah, because we don't want these people having to deal with law enforcement interactions when they're tripping balls in the middle of downtown Portland. God help us that should happen. Some of the other things that they're suggesting too is, and I really like this one, they say they're really going to start working on just cleaning up downtown Portland, trying to get groups like Solve, Stop Oregon Litter and Vandalism, and adopting what they call Adopt One Block to tackle litter throughout hotspots in the city. And one of the things they're going to do as part of this, which is my favorite, is a public awareness campaign funded with dollars that will purchase billboards that say, "Portland is not a trash can." That's going to clean the city up. Let me tell you right there, that's the problem solved. Clean. This is also one of those stories where you go, what? So there was a lockdown earlier this week at the Mary Spildy Lane Community College downtown center in Eugene. And the lockdown was in place for about 35 minutes. Happened about 1:55 in the afternoon. And Eugene police were called after a man went to the front doors of the LCC building located on 10th Avenue in downtown Eugene. There were two people in there, and they reported the man was armed. Well, later, EPD clarified that. EPD says the doors were locked when two witnesses said and told them the person pointed his fingers in a gun-type motion and then left, walking eastbound down West 10th Avenue. After a search, police say the man was not found. And right now, they're currently looking for a white male with fingers. All right, let's look at what's happening in Oregon. Rick, it's time for you to roll out a big old can of reel.